This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before we get started here today, I want to make sure I take the time, as always, to remind you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode, make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review, wherever you listen to your podcast. It'd be very appreciated, very helpful, let us see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss, and I imagine Rob Manfred and the higher-ups with the MLB have had to have a lot of discussions recently based on what is happening in Florida. Obviously, as you know, and as we discussed on the last episode, the Marlins had a little breakout. As of when we last spoke, it was only 4 guys that had it. And, I mean, again, they played the game, but still there was 4 guys that had it. And now, come Monday, there was, I take that back. As of Tuesday, I think there's like 17 guys, like in terms of players and staff, that now have tested positive for that Rona. Now, again, positive tests aren't always the worst thing. Again, it's bad, but like, I think Juan Soto, for example, he tested positive the one day, and then he hasn't tested positive since. I think it was like July 25th. He hasn't tested positive since that day. Though, again, he's unable to participate in anything due to the fact that he's not out of he hasn't reached whatever quota or status that the MLB needs for him to reach in order to get back into playing. So, again, people could be testing positive and then, like I said, test negative not that long after. So we'll see how many of these are like stay positive as they go through more tests. But yeah, this is about as bad as you would imagine it would get. And again, this is only the first weekend. Now, and we'll say on the flip side some positive news. Apparently, no, they haven't had any other positives outside of the ones we already knew about. They haven't had any new positive, I guess I should say, outside of, again, the Marlins. None of the Phillies have tested positive. None of the the Braves. None of the Mets. None of the guys have tested positive. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have it, because again, if these guys just got it like Sunday, if we're talking about the Phillies here, they could start having guys test positive like Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, sometime around there. Like it may take some time, again, because like I said, the incubation is like I think the number is like 3 to 14 days. So. Just because they haven't tested positive yet doesn't mean that they won't test positive. It just means they haven't tested positive as of the most recent test, which again is a good thing. But as you guys already know, and as we've talked about on this podcast, a positive, or I guess a negative test now does not mean a negative test forever. Like, just because, like I said, it's just all it is negative at the time of when the test was taken. You could have left the test, come across somebody that had it, and now you got it, but you think you're negative because you got your test back and it was negative. So, I mean, at least they're testing constantly, so you would hope whenever it does come up, I guess if, again, you don't hope for anything, but since there's not a bubble, the chances of this happening, again, whether it's, 17 guys or not, or maybe it's only 5 or 6 or 2, whatever the number may be, it's going to happen again, because, again, all this league is just open. They're traveling everywhere. The teams aren't confined to a bubble, as you talked about, and the bubbles are working. I think it was the NHL hasn't had. I think they've had very little, if any, positive tests. I know the MLS had some shakiness early on, but now they've been good. I think I saw a tweet that they've had positive tests for like negative tests, negative tests for 9 straight weeks. The NBA obviously hasn't had any issues since they started letting people into the bubble again. The people that weren't able to come just stayed at home, and then once they're cleared, then they fly and they got to go through the quarantine process and everything once they get there. But as of right now, no one tested positive, which is good. As we already discussed, the NWSL, they had some issues in the beginning. The one team had to drop out, but after that, everything was good to go. They were able to get through their season, finish it out. Nice and good. WNBA. Again, it's ongoing, but still very little positive tests as of recently. So clearly, the sports in a bubble are working. Now, again, it's the sports outside the bubble where the NFL, they're starting to see people begin to test positive now. People will also begin to opt out of the season, which we'll talk about in a second. And then also, like I said, the MLB is what it is. So, with that, since like half the Marlins roster has the Rona, the MLB had to come out and postpone all of their games for the time being. Now, they made the point to say they're not canceled, but Major League Baseball has postponed all of the Marlins games through Sunday, like Sunday of this week, after the team's recent coronavirus outbreak. The MLB announced that Miami's next 6 games, starting with Tuesday night's home games against the Baltimore Orioles, have been postponed, citing the belief that it is most prudent to allow the Marlins time to focus on providing care for their players and planning their baseball operations for a resumption early next week, if possible. We'll see. Marlins have moved to daily testing and will remain in Philadelphia, where they played last weekend, as they gather more information, according to a statement from team CEO Derek Jeter. We continue to take this entire situation very seriously. All of our players, coaches, and staff understandably having a difficult time are understandably having a difficult time enduring this experience. After receiving additional test results on our major league team this morning, we reached out to the commissioner's office with concern for the health and safety of our team, as well as our opponents. The postponements were allowed Tuesday among a series of scheduling changes involving 4 other teams. The Orioles, who were scheduled to host the Marlins in a 2-game series starting Wednesday, instead will host the New York Yankees Wednesday and Thursday. The Yankees were scheduled to play the Phillies in Philadelphia on Tuesday night, but the game officially was postponed out of an abundance of caution, because I think it was supposed to play on Monday too. But then that game got postponed as well. The Phillies also were scheduled to play games Wednesday, Thursday in New York against the Yankees, who will now be traveling to Baltimore instead. Also impacted by Tuesday announcements are the Washington Nationals, who were slated to play a 3-game series starting Friday in Miami against the Marlins. The majority of the Nationals players voted against playing the Marlins earlier Tuesday, according to ESPN and multiple reports. That's where we're at now. We're at the point where a week of the season is lost for the Marlins, and some games will be lost for the Phillies and for the Nationals, and I guess not for the Orioles, because I guess they're just going to play the Yankees instead. But yes, that's the thing, is that like, all right, cool, we got this week on, but what do the Marlins do for these games? And this doesn't even touch on the fact that Miami, the mayor of Miami said that once the team gets down there, they should quarantine for 14 days whenever they do come back to play, just because, well, I guess if they do come back, but I guess it sounds like they're going to stay in Philadelphia, so. But even with that, they should still, like, quarantine for a little bit, right? Like, they shouldn't just, all right, we just go and, like, give it a week. Like, in theory, again, we'll have to see how all the test results come back, but if people are still positive, you have to get, like, whatever the number of negative tests in a row, or, I guess, in a row, in a certain amount of time before you can play again, and that doesn't mean that all these guys will be clear of it by early next week. So it's like, all right, what do you do? And do you just postpone next week's games as well? And which, if that's the case, I don't know how they're going to make them up for any teams involved, because as I was kind of discussing with my family, just trying to figure out how the logistics of this could possibly work. In theory, later in the season, when you would be making up these games, I guess you have to figure out a series at a later date where you were going to play these teams again, because obviously you're only playing the same 9 teams through the 60 games. But you guys, you have to find a time where you're going to play these teams again and hopefully be able to fit some doubleheaders in. But again, so now you're now you're taking a condensed season and making it even more difficult for the Marlins in terms of now they have to play a bunch of doubleheaders whenever in the season, which is a unfair disadvantage to them because, again, they didn't plan on getting their own. It's not their fault that it happened, per se, because we don't really know how they got it. But, like I said, now they got to play a bunch of doubleheaders late in the season. Or you have, if they do have them play games next week, now you got them playing against the bunch of replacements or reserves or whatever, whoever they're on their schedule for next week. So now the Marlins, who took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies with their main guys in there, now we'll be forced to play reserve players, and now that gives an unfair advantage in the opposite direction to the other team. And again, also not unfair, but a disadvantage to the Marlins because now they got to play a bunch of games with their backups. But I'm saying whoever's on their schedule for next week, which I guess I could, let me look that up in a second, so give me a moment. But the Marlins, I'm trying to see who they play the next week. Also, yeah, they were in the lead in the NL East. That's funny. So then they play, their next game will be against the Phillies. Again, that's funny. In Miami. So then they play the Phillies and the Mets and then the Blue Jays. I guess the Phillies and the Mets is like the Tuesday through Sunday of next week. So there's a chance that the Phillies could get an opportunity to play against them again, but again with worse players in theory. Now that gives them an advantage. And then the same thing with the Mets. They can play them with worse players, and that gives them an advantage now as opposed to when... And I mean, again, this is like whatever because you knew this was going to happen. With teams, people are going to test positive, is what it is, but you didn't expect half of a team or half of an organization, again, because it's not just players, it's staff members as well, to be out of commission due to the Rona. Like, you thought, all right, maybe a few players here, a few players there, that kind of thing. But it's like, again, you have this happen, and again, they're not going to cancel the season, obviously, because it's just one team. But the two things that are prevalent are, one, you hope that it's only one team, because, again, we don't know. It could extend to other teams at a later date. Again, just because it's pretty soon after they played, so who knows when or if any Phillies will test positive, and then if that happens, then we're going to have to talk about shutting down the season. If there's another outbreak within the Phillies, because now they're starting to play games and do things as if they're all fine, and that may not happen, and then, like I said, it's going to be a whole mess. And then also, what happens again if another team has the same outbreak? Like, how do you handle it? Like, what if it happens later in the season where you don't have the chance to make up these games? Like, what if it happens in the last month? Or I guess, well, there's only like really 2 months. But say it happens in September sometime. What do you do? Because if you postpone games or you cause people to skip games, like, do they just miss those games? Are they forfeits? Like, do teams now all of a sudden they could be in a potential spot to make it to the playoffs? Now they lose 5-6 in a row because they have to forfeit a bunch of games because they have an outbreak within the team. Like, that doesn't seem right. And then again, those same teams that were playing them, now they get automatic wins, which in the season where every game counts for, like, I think it was like 2.7 or something like that games. I think that's what one of the people were saying. It's like, how does, like, that seems like an unfair advantage as well. You give them, basically in a normal season, you're giving those other teams like 9 wins. So it's just like, I hope that this has caused the MLB to think like, all right, what are we going to do if and when this happens again? Because without a bubble, or just even a part of the thinking could be try to figure out a quick bubble and like pause it and then like figure it out. But again, they're not going to stop it for the Marlins. The Yankees, the Dodgers, the Astros, who else would be a big time team? Like the Phillies, maybe the Braves, maybe even the Mets. Like, you're gonna have to have some big time teams. The Twins. I'm trying to think. The Rays. Like you have to have higher, more important teams to the league. I'm sure. Like, again, not sorry to the Marlins and their fans, but the MLB is not going to stop for the Marlins. It's unfortunate, but it's just true that like they would need a bigger team. Just like, again, the NBA did stop Rudy Gobert, but it's not going to stop again if someone tests positive unless, like, again, it's like a big time player like if LeBron or Giannis or somebody or Anthony Davis, Paul George, Kawhi were to test positive down there and be out for like 2 weeks. Then all of a sudden they might have to start tinkering some things and try to pause some things and do whatever. But like the league's not going to stop for the Marlins. It is what it is. But again, this isn't just a Marlins issue. I mean, it is a Marlins issue for now, but doesn't mean that Marlins going to be the only issue for the season. They have to have things in place. They have to have plans in place for if and when this happens again. What's the protocol? Because, again, it sounds like the decision was made once they found out, I think 3 guys tested positive right before the game. They're like, oh, hey, let's just have a group text and ask the players if they want to play, which, of course, they do because all these games are important. And, all right, yeah, just go out there and play. And I don't know if it's completely clear whether or not the Phillies knew beforehand that before the game started that they had all these cases. But I imagine if they didn't know, they wouldn't have played because, as we saw, the Nationals, they were just like, oh, man, we got the Rona gear, we're not going down there. Not going down there at all. Another point could be, all right, maybe you have to take some of these teams out of these hotspot areas. Again, when the NBA happened, it just happened again, shut everything down for a time period and then started back up. But if they think, all right, this team got it from being down in Miami or being down in Florida in general, because they were talking about maybe it was from Atlanta, I don't know. There's a couple different hotspots, like I'm saying. Do you just not play games in those hotspots? Do you move them somewhere else where it's a little bit safer? It seems like not the worst idea, right? Just move them somewhere else on the East Coast where the games are safer. Makes sense to me. Because, again, this doesn't seem like it's going to go away in the near future. Again, maybe eventually we'll get it under control and everything. The cases will drop and all that stuff would dissipate. But for the time being, Florida's still going to be a hotspot. Georgia's still going to be a hotspot. Texas is still going to be a hotspot. Arizona, California. There's a bunch of different places, and it's should you just not play games in Miami or just Florida in general for the time being? Again, you kind of make fake bubbles without it being an official bubble. I just said, all right. I mean, the Blue Jays already aren't playing in Toronto because the Toronto was yeah, no, that's not safe. And then, voila, look what happened. The first weekend, you have a team with an outbreak. Again, first weekend, didn't even make it 3 games before you had, again, over 10 players, or 10 positive tests come back. Well, I guess you made it through Sunday before the test came back on Monday. But you get the point. Again, you couldn't even make it through 4 days of the season, more or less, without a major outbreak happening. And again, there's nothing really stopping it from happening again because there's no bubble. They're not all placed in certain areas, which again, that's the crazy part of the fact that neither side agreed with the bubble. The players didn't want the league, didn't want to say, all right, or the owners didn't want to, all right, cool. When, again, you can listen to Dr. Fauci if you want. You can listen to other doctors if you want. I mean, Fauci's been mainly right on things, but again, I'm not going to tell you who to believe and what not to believe and who to listen to and where to get your news and where to get your information from. But the sports where there are bubbles are currently working, at least in this country. So it's safe to say that and that's what Fauci was saying, was that, hey, look, you're not going to be able to play sports without a bubble. And lo and behold, the sports, like I said, with a bubble are going on fine right now, and the sports without a bubble, the one sport that's currently playing without a bubble just had a major outbreak. So hopefully this is a wake-up call for the league, because I know Manfred went on TV and said this is a nightmare scenario, even though, again, if this were the Yankees, it would be a nightmare scenario. But he said it wasn't a nightmare scenario, but if this is a nightmare scenario, this happening again, or this happening to more than one team at the same time, would definitely be a nightmare scenario. So you have to figure out what you're going to do, try to make sure you can keep this as contained as you can with all the traveling that's being done. So I don't know what that means, but hopefully they're taking this time and don't just think it's going to be a one-off, because as I said, just because you're positive today does not mean you'll be positive 3 days from now, doesn't mean you'll be positive a week from now. It just means you're positive today. I mean, it means you're negative. I keep saying positive. Just because you're negative today does not mean you'll be negative tomorrow, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks. Like I said, this isn't like a one-time thing where you just check. It's not a pregnancy where you check either you're pregnant or you're not, and then you're not, and then all right, then you won't know again until you take another test. Like I said, they're taking tests every day. You could be negative one day, positive the next day. It could be a false positive, could be a false negative. That's a lot of situations. So they got to have some plans in place, and hopefully, again, this just woke them up to be like, let's make sure we have some plans in place in case this happens again, because it's going to happen again. More players are going to test positive. Now, whether it's going to be a whole team, we'll wait and see, but more people are going to test positive. So hopefully they have a plan in place. And speaking of plans, I hope some of these NFL teams have plans in place on how they're going to replace some of these players, because players are beginning to opt out. Unsurprising, again, you knew it was going to happen. Not everybody was going to play. A lot of people have different reasons for it, but I'll talk about that. Talk about one team in particular that's been hit hard with the opt-outs. Well, even though people are saying the coach is secretly masterminding this, I don't think it's that serious. But hey, you never know. But yeah, we'll talk about all that stuff right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, like I said, the NFL knew this was coming. That's why they had to set the stipulations for the stipends and different things, and the reasons you could, and well, I guess the reasons you would get an excuse opt out as opposed to a voluntary or an excuse. I don't know exactly what they called it, but you get what I mean. Like, again, they had to set all the stipulations. That's why, I mean, I think, they said as of Friday, I think is when all the health and safety stuff and all that things were put in place. Then I think it was, what day was it? Oh, it was Friday. That was when the first guy opted out, which was Laurent Duvernay Tardif. I believe he's Canadian, little French, so if I pronounce that wrong, bear with me. But I believe he was he was the first one to opt out. So then that got started, and I mean, there hasn't been too many opt-outs, and we haven't had too many big names. I mean, well, let me not say that. We haven't had any stars opt out, you could say. You've had some names that people know and will recognize, but no, like I said, no stars as of this moment. Though I know one quote unquote star that was debating was Demarcus Lawrence. I know his wife, I believe, is pregnant, so he was discussing whether he was going to opt in or opt out, and he said it wasn't a foregone conclusion. No, again, he showed up for camp today, apparently, so we'll see how that goes, and also I guess we'll have to see how bad things get in Texas, either with Dallas or just in Texas in general, to see if that changes, if his opinion changes, while training camp or anything's going on, or even if he catches it, that might change his opinion. Because as we talked about, Von Miller, he's had some issues, or he had some issues with it, but then people just say he has asthma, which, I mean, is true, but, I mean, as we talked about, there was 15 different reasons that people could get an excuse to opt out, so it's not like it was only one thing. They put these on for a reason, because it's just a possibility that their guys could have, especially since a lot of them, some of the linemen or everything, not everybody's in the greatest shape. And I mean, again, not to say that that's necessarily going to be the biggest factor, but again, you have some big guys out there, and if they get it, again, it's a respiratory thing. So if they get it, and now their breathing's a problem, that could be an issue, or just like I said, just being an athlete in general and having weakened lung capacity or heart capacity, that's a big issue, as we talked about with Eduardo Rodriguez, I believe, the Red Sox pitcher. I hope I pronounced the name right. But the Red Sox pitcher who, again, is only 27 years old, a young guy, but he's had some heart issues and hasn't been able to get back with the team yet, due to the effects of COVID-19. So, like I said, just because you get it and you're fine, that doesn't mean everything's going to be fine. And I guess obviously fine would be, in this case, not dying, which, again, definitely good. But as we've seen, or as you've seen documented in news stories or on social media or wherever, people that get it and don't have it that bad can still suffer lingering effects or even potentially long-term effects from it. And then obviously if you do get it bad, then that's an even different story. So, like I said, getting it is, you just kind of want to avoid it at all, if at all possible, but with no bubble. And again, actually we'll talk about that in a second, whether or not I think they should do a bubble, or if like how a bubble could potentially work. But as we talk about with the opt-outs, one of the bigger stories is that 6 Patriots have currently opted out, and that's as of, like I said, it's as of Tuesday night. So they have until, I think, August 3rd, which is next Monday, to officially decide if they're going to play or not. I think, and even though I don't know what would happen if they decided after the fact, because again, it's not like they'd be that deep into training camp anyway, if that were to happen. But yeah, so the 6 Patriots. So the 6 are Najee Turan, the backup center guard, who was undrafted free agent in 2018, and he was on the practice squad in 2019. Danny Vitale, a 26-year-old who was the expected replacement for James Devlin, signed a 1-year deal as a free agent with the Patriots in May. Even though it wasn't a lock to potentially make the final roster, it was still a possibility that he could be that guy, to be that, like I said, to be the fullback. Marcus Cannon, he opted out at 32. He was at high risk as being a cancer survivor, so again, makes sense. He overcame non-Hodgkin lymphoma after he was drafted in 2011. So that was it's understandable on his part, even though I think he could potentially be a starter for them, so that's like kind of a big deal. Brandon Bolden, a running back, who was 30, entering his 9th year and 8th with New England. He's a special teams guy, which, again, I know the Patriots value, so that's a big hit, potentially. And then, obviously, the 2 biggest ones are starters on defense. Dante Hightower, the linebacker who's opting out. He's been a part of 3 Super Bowl championships with the teams, the team captain. He's the main signal caller, and he was going to help make up for having lost Kyle Van Noy and Jamie Collins in free agency. And now all 3 of them are gone. So that's a big thing that the Patriots are going to have to overcome. And then the last one was Patrick Chung, who had agreed to a 2-year extension, with the Patriots in May. But now that we without him, he was likely to start alongside Devin McCourty, and he's entering his 12th year at 11th with the Patriots. So again, that's just one team that didn't even. Again, we're not even talking about outbreak. We're just talking about guys that said straight up, "I'm not playing." 2 of them defensive starters, and another one of them a potential offensive starter. So again, these aren't just like nobodies. Again, everyone's kind of wondering like, oh, when's the first big name? And again, it doesn't have to be big names. It could be just like players that are going to contribute to your team that might hurt just as much. Again, I don't think any of the quarterbacks really are going to opt out. Though, again, they could. I know, like, for example, Carson Wentz, I know he just had a child. I think, he had a child at the end of last year. So she's not, like, that old. So then, like, again, there's just a dangerous thing coming back home, potentially bringing it and affecting the baby. You kind of want to be wary of that. But again, he's not alone. There's other guys, I imagine. I know Russell Wilson, Sierra just had a baby. I think, like, within the last, like, couple weeks, if I remember correctly. Like, it hasn't been that long. So, like, again, that's a potentially high-risk situation in terms of, again, not maybe he himself was in high risk, but it's potentially high risk to spread it out. Spread it to a family member. Or even, like I said, maybe somebody has their parents or a girlfriend or a partner or a kid that may be at high risk, and that might be just as serious. So, it'll be interesting to see if any, like, quote-unquote big names dropped out. But again, if you have a team losing 6 starters, again, this is as of Tuesday, so they have basically a full week before to see if anyone else decides they want to drop out, which, I mean, is not impossible. I'm saying that's not nothing. 6 guys on one team is not nothing, and I think it's just going to be interesting to see how teams handle that. Because again, obviously, it's training camps. You have a lot of roster. I mean, you have a lot of spots available, and you're going to cut down your team and everything and work through that. But at this point, I imagine if you came into this, you expect the guys to be a part of your team. And so you kind of have to figure, you got to figure out, like, all right, we're going to trade for somebody, we're going to sign guys as free agents that are still out there, we're going to just rely on the young guys. Like, it's an interesting scenario to try to think about in terms of how they're going to make up for that. Because, again, 6 guys is a lot, potentially 3 starters is a lot. And even if non-starters in Bolden, who was going to be a likely contributor on special teams at the very least, and then Vitale, who could have been the fullback, which again that's the spot they use quite a bit with the Patriots in their running game. So again, these aren't just again, this isn't Cam Newton, this isn't Julian Edelman, this isn't Stephon Gilmore, this isn't guys like that, but this isn't nothing. So, I'd be interested to see how they handle that, and obviously people went on conspiracy, like, oh, Belichick's trying to get them to tank, blah, blah, blah. Or I think they now, with like certain guys dropping, I think it was like Hightower and Chung and some other guys, they had now have the money potentially to sign Jadeveon Clowney, things like that. So, again, I doubt Belichick is telling people to opt out. Like, that would be foolish. But I'm interested to see again how they try to make up for it now that they have spots available, because they got to figure out something. I don't imagine they're just not going to sign guys. They're going to try to get replacements, because again, you can only rely on rookies and younger guys or new additions, but so much due to the fact that they have no real off season, so they don't really know much about your system yet, and they don't have a lot of time to get up to speed before the game start. So yes, another big one that was, big's a relative term, but Marquis Goodwin from the Eagles, here's how they traded for on draft day to add again more depth and more speed to that offense, and he opted out, which was interesting, because that's kind of the interesting thing with these guys, that like I always wonder, like, when does it hit, like, this might not be it. Though in fairness, they didn't have the official terms of like how they could opt out until Friday, so obviously no decision made. But you saw him training, he was working, he was trying to get himself in shape, but again, I guess he just decided the risk didn't warrant the reward, which is completely fair. He's a young child, and also his wife has suffered multiple miscarriages during their time together, so it's just like, it's probably not worth it. And you probably just want to be around with your family, so I completely understand that. For him, again, obviously, it hurts the Eagles to a degree. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but again, just is going to be a depth guy who is going to be useful, you would think, potentially. Devin Funchess from the Green Bay Packers opted out. He was a guy that they signed in free agency, and their receiving core was already kind of weak, and they didn't really draft anybody, and he was going to hopefully help with that, but now he's gone, so that hurts the Packers. Again, these aren't stars, these are guys that were going to be useful, so this still hurts. Michael Pierce from Minnesota opted out. He signed a 3-year deal with the Vikings in March to help replace Linval Joseph. Now they got to figure out the situation. He fell into the high risk category, so it makes sense why we didn't want to risk it. Eddie Goldman, Chicago Bears. He was one of the anchors up front for the defense. He signed a 4-year extension prior to the 2018 season, but he decided it wasn't worth it. Like I said, a few other guys, Starler Tulele from the Bills, he decided to opt out. And like I said, the list is only going to grow. I don't think it's going to end here. But with that being said, how does the NFL prepare for this? Because again, it's like, do you take the time now to think of a plan for a potential bubble? Do you think of a plan for football if it has to stop? Because again, you saw what happened with the MLB. You can't just think we're going to do the exact same thing the MLB is doing and not run into potentially the same issue with more guys and more traveling. That's just unrealistic to believe that and there's not going to be an outbreak with a team. So you got to kind of figure out what you're going to do with that. How that's going to work? Because again, you only play a game once a week, which is beneficial. You don't have to hopefully cancel too many games, but it's like, do those games get postponed? Do they have to forfeit them? Or do they just go with the guys they have? Because again, if you have 20 guys catch it, you only have 53 guys on a roster plus the plus the practice squad. Like there's not a whole lot of room for you to replace 20 guys in a pinch in a week or two. So again, hopefully they're planning that out, planning out what they have to do, or hopefully, like I said, even planning out potential bubbles. Because again, you have maybe different places, different areas we could try to build things, try to use different fields, and the thing for them is that, like, all right, this seems like, I think Mark Emmert came out and said, the NCAA president, I believe, said that fall sports is kind of in danger. And that's going to be the case. That includes college football. And that would mean that there's an open day. So now you can play some games on Saturdays, play potentially 3 games, and that, all right, you already play 3 games on Saturday, a bunch of games on Sunday, you already play games on Thursday night and Monday night most weeks. So, again, you'd have to configure some bubbles, but I don't know exactly logistically how it would work, and I already said it would be difficult. But with no college football, and as I was, again, seeing how the MLB is going, you can't expect to just go through the season without an incident. That would just be naive of you to believe that, all right, we're going to go through fine. Again, after seeing the first weekend, MLB had an outbreak. Again, a hot spot, but still, it's an outbreak. And there's no guarantee there won't be one this weekend, won't be one a couple weekends from now. A couple weekdays from now, we don't know. We really don't know. So I'm saying you have to begin to prepare. And I hope Roger Goodell and the NFL is preparing, because they had the most time to figure out a plan and figure out how to work it and get it right. And they seem to just be doing the like, hey, we're going to put in as many precautions as we can in the facilities. And again, have people try to fly in, go right to the hotel, different things like that, not really spend too much time out. But again, if you have people going home at night, you have people like going to the grocery store, going to pick up food, do whatever in the city, there's a chance they may catch something. Then again, you bring it back to the team. Even though testing every day, like I said, the positive test might not happen until like 5 days after you were exposed, and now you've exposed a bunch of other people. It's a whole mess. It's a whole process. Not to even mention you're letting fans in the stands in a lot of some of these places. So who knows how that's going to go, especially when some of these stadiums are domes. Now, again, if there's not filtrated properly, that seems like it would be a chance to spread the disease quite easily and rapidly to a mass amount of people, which would also be a disaster. So hopefully the NFL has some plans. Hopefully these teams have some plans for how they're going to fix or deal with the opt-outs. And like I said, you can't, after seeing what the MLB went through this weekend, you can't just be like, hey, we're just going to hope it doesn't happen to us. Like, that's not a realistic scenario anymore. You have to be like, all right, what do we do if X happens? What do we do if Y happens? What do we do if Z happens? What do we do if we need to stop the season mid-season? What do we do if we have to start it a little bit later? What do we do if we have to start to play it in the spring, or like whatever may happen? Like, again, you have to have something, you have to have backup plans to backup plans at this point. Because to just assume that nothing's going to happen in a non-bubble scenario is very naive, in my opinion. But hey, the NFL hasn't really put too much into it yet, so we'll see if anything changes in terms of that protocol and stuff like that. Obviously, again, they have safety protocols for the at the arena, and they have like protocols for if you do something deemed high risk outside of the field or outside the training facility and stuff. But again, that doesn't mean you can't get it in a normal scenario. Like I said, you could get it in a restaurant, you could get it in a grocery store, you could get it in a lot of different places. You get it getting gas, potentially. Like, who knows? Who knows, honestly? You could get it going to a friend's house, get it going to a teammate's house. Like I said, there's a lot of places you could get it. So to just assume there's not going to be some sort of outbreak, some sort of situation. Even during training camp, there's a chance that things could happen. So you got to figure out what you do in that scenario. Like I said, hopefully the MLB is taking this time, seeing what the NFL is taking this time, seeing what the MLB went through, and planning accordingly. Because if they don't, then the chance of the season going and starting and finishing seem very slim. So no one wants that. Like I said, if you want to start, you want to be able to finish. And the NWSL started, finished, no problems. Again, they were in a bubble, but still, you can clearly see sports in America. It's possible to start a league and finish. So now the other teams have to make sure that they have things. The other leagues, I should say, make sure they have things in place to make sure that they are on that same track as well. And we'll see if that happens. So yeah, speaking of again the NFL. The NFL 100 list has been coming out over the past few days. It's kind of a disaster. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But apparently players are unhappy about their rankings. It's surprising. I know that players are taking things that come out. And this is not in the media because obviously players voting on it and taking it to heart. I completely understand. But Keenan Allen specifically was very adamant about his ranking and his place and where he stands in the league. So we'll talk about his comments and what he said, and if I agree with him, disagree with him, all that fun stuff after this break. So stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So Keenan Allen saw himself get ranked on the NFL Top 100. Was less than happy with his ranking. He was ranked 77, I believe. 77. And I know the Chargers tweeted out the video like of his little segment that really showcases route running. He really might be him and Dante Adams, and I say him, Dante Adams, Stephon Diggs, maybe Amari if he's on top of his game, because you know some games Amari just be I don't want to say he's taking plays off or whatever, but just like sometimes he'll be in it, sometimes he'll be out of it. I don't know exactly why, but you'll just see like sometimes he'll have big games and some days he'll just do absolutely nothing. But those four are definitely the upper echelon, some of the elite of the route runners in my personal opinion, especially their releases. Exceptionally at the great feet. Chad Johnson, probably one of the best route runners I've ever seen. That's neither here nor is it there. But, so yeah, Keenan Allen saw where he was ranked and was apparently less than thrilled with where he was ranked at. He said, okay, I'm tired of biting my tongue. He tweeted this. At Cheetah, which is Tyreek Hill, at Mike Evans 13 _, and at Chris Goodwin, he obviously meant Chris Godwin, but he added the wrong person. And the list goes on. Are not a better receiver than me, faster than me every day of the week, but separation, child please, which is the phrase that Chad Johnson had made famous on his when the Bengals were on Hard Knocks. And then he went to go. Then he said after that, I'm the best receiver in the AFC West without question. So, one, I would just say that I completely understand why Keenan Allen is angry. I do feel like, I know I talked about some underrated guys recently, but he's definitely on the list of underrated guys. I mean, when you look at his numbers over the past few seasons, there's never really a year where he's been like bad. And I think that's the thing, and that's why I feel like, especially when you're this good, this consistently, and again, you're also a guy that is, in his mind at least, consistently underrated. I can see why he's a little angry. All right, so he had 1,000 yards as a rookie on 71 catches. Had 708 yards. No, 708. 783 his second year. 725 his third year, though he only played 8 games, so that's very impressive. That's 90 yards per game. So 2016, he only played 1 game. I think he tore his ACL. So didn't have much there. But in the last 3 seasons when he's been healthy, he's had almost 1,400 yards, 1,196, and 1,199 with 102, 97, 104 catches in those 3 years and 6 touchdowns each year. He's not really a touchdown guy, but again, he is a guy that's going to get open, going to run good routes, going to catch the ball when it's thrown his way. Had a catch percentage of at least 64% in all three of those, in all the last 3 seasons. So I can understand why from his perspective. And again, he's dealing with guys. I mean, you could say the similar thing about Mike Evans. He's dealing with guys that, I mean, Phillip Rivers last year, as I've said before, it's a guy that had him in fantasy. Not great. Definitely not great. He was awful. Kept throwing the ball to the other team. That definitely hurt. So yeah, 2019, he had 66% completion, which is fine. 4,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. Can't do much with that. The 2 years before, he was pretty solid. But again, you're talking about a guy in Phillip Rivers, and you were talking about Tyreek Hill. He's got Patrick Mahomes, the best receiver in the league. Best quarterback in the league. Chris Godwin, excuse me, I got it confused too. Chris Godwin's only been really, he had a great year this past year, which is what it's based on, so I understand why he's ranked ahead of him. And then you have Mike Evans, who's also been consistently good. When you look at Mike Evans' stats over these last few years, so this is in his last 3 years, Mike Evans has 224 assists from CBS Sports HQ. Mike Evans has 224 receptions, 3,682 yards, 21 touchdowns, and a 57.1 catch percent. I know he does suffer with some drops from time to time. Well, as we talked about, if you want to accumulate the stats that we just discussed with Keenan Allen, he has 303 receptions, almost 3,800 receiving yards and 18 touchdowns with a 68% completion percentage. So, I mean, it's debatable. Obviously, Keenan Allen is more of a technician, a route runner type of guy. Mike Evans is more of a deep threat, big play type of guy. So receiver, the type of receiver they are is different. Same with Tyreek Hill. Like, he's a guy that can run good routes and stuff like that, but he's a deep threat, more or less. And again, he can do other things, but his trick, I mean, I don't want to say call it a trick, but his biggest skill coming into the league was his speed. That's something that Keenan Allen doesn't have. He didn't have that speed. I think he ran like a 4.6, 4.7, something like that at the combine. So he has to rely on his route running because he's just not a fast guy. And even Mike Evans, who was in like 4.2, 4.3, I think he ran like a 4.5 or something like that. And he's a big guy, long strides and stuff like that. So he's not slow. You know what I'm saying? Keenan Allen, because he doesn't have that speed, has to rely on other things. And we talk about like 77, and again, we'll talk about more of the list itself in the next segment, because the way people ordered it and like the stuff, the way they do it is just very off, in my opinion. Again, you can't, like, sometimes it seems like it's based on this past year, but other times it feels like it's based on legacy. It's all, like I said, the way the players rank it is all kind of stupid, in my personal opinion. Again, but yes, when you talk about that, it's like, all right, maybe, like I said, maybe you could debate. I know Mike Evans is a pretty consistent top 5, top 10 receiver, and Keenan Allen's generally in there as well in the top 10. But again, we're talking about guys like him, like I said, the guys you mentioned, him, Tyreek Hill, and Chris Godwin. There's an argument to be made on who the best receiver is. At least in my opinion, I think it's Tyreek Hill out of those 4, personally. But again, if I'm Keenan Allen, I should feel like I'm that guy. Like I said, I catch 100 balls every year. I get over 1,000 yards every year. I get, at least 6 touchdowns. Like, so it's not like I'm nobody. And like I said, clearly he's never made an All-Pro team. He's made a couple Pro Bowls, been a comeback player of the year, stuff like that. But he feels like he's never gotten his just due, and a part of it may be playing on the Chargers, which no one really cares about. But it's just like, it's debatable, like whether or not he should get more recognition. And then going back to Chris Godwin for a second, this past year he had 86 receptions, 1333 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So, you could argue he had a better season, I think. What did he have? Did he have more yards? He had more yards, more touchdowns, less catches. So, again, it's all relative. Depends on what you want from a receiver. But again, he was good, so I don't think that's like... And that's the thing about the receiver position, is that like, there's so many good ones. It's not like that shameful to be like, oh, this person's better or that person's better. Because there's a lot of good receivers in the league right now. It's one of the strongest positions in the league, in my personal opinion, at this moment. In terms of, like, again, because you could ask different people their top... You could ask different people their best receiver in the league. You might get 3, 4 different answers, depending on who you ask. Like I said, you ask the best quarterback, you ask the best running back, probably you get a few different answers. You ask the best like pass rusher, you might get a few. Corner, you probably get this the same. Safety, you may get the same. But like I said, receiver, there's at least 3 in Julio, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins. The different ways you could go depending on who you ask. And then, like I said, you add in a couple other guys, Tyreek Hills, Mike Evans, Odell when he's healthy. Trying to think who else. Dante Adams could be... he's not going to be number 1, but he could be up there. Keenan Allen could be up there. I know somebody was ranking him. They had Stephon Diggs number 2 just because of his elite route running ability, along with his deep play... his big play ability. So I'm saying, you could ask different guys and get different type of rankings. So I don't think it's necessarily a shot at Keenan Allen if people say this guy's better, that guy's better. Because again, a lot of these guys are very close, but I do respect him for voicing his opinion and believing in himself. That's half the battle of even getting that far in the league, is just betting and believing in yourself and believing that you are the best. Because if you don't believe that, outside of again quarterback, because it's Patrick Mahomes, but every other position, in my opinion, should be like, all right, I think I'm the best, and play like you think you're the best, and that's what Keenan Allen has been doing for himself. So I can understand why he's angry. Though you could argue with some of the guys they had ranked above him, he should have been higher than 77, because we'll talk about the list and some of the guys they had ranked on certain spots, and it's just like, I don't know what the criteria is, but clearly they needs to be fixed. But I guess to a second point is the best receiver in the AFC West. Like I said, I would probably still go Tyreek Hill. I know I talked about Kenny Golladay, but Courtney Sutton is definitely another underrated guy. Again, he's only his second year, so it's hard to say he's a top 10 guy, but a lot of people would put him in their top 10, in their top 10s. In this past season, all right, he had his second year, 72 receptions, 1,100 yards, a little over, and 6 touchdowns, dealing with a rookie Drew Lock and also just Joe Flacco and some other spotty quarterback play in the meantime, in between time. Though, again, like I said, Phil Rivers wasn't exactly great either this past year. You got him. Like I said, the Raiders don't really have a stake in this yet because they got like Tyrell Williams, who's not at that level. Henry Ruggs is a rookie. Brian Edwards is a rookie. Henry Renfro's young. Like I said, they got to work some guys up. Like we're talking about Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Courtney Sutton. Like I said, you ask different people, they're going to rank those guys differently. Like me, I would probably go Tyreek 1, Keenan Allen 2, and Sutton 3, just because, I mean, Sutton could easily flip-flop with Keenan. Just I got to see it again next year, just to make sure that I don't think it was an aberration. I mean, most receivers, if you're good, you're good. You're very rarely going to go backwards unless they give you a bad quarterback play or an injury. But I'm just saying, I don't necessarily agree with Keenan Allen's statement he's the best receiver, but at the same time, who am I? And also, he should feel that way. Like, regardless of opinion, he should feel that he's the best. Whether you agree, whether I agree, or whether other players agree. I mean, some people did, some people didn't, and all kind of, it's Twitter, you'll get people to agree and disagree on literally anything. But I mean, he should feel like he's the best receiver. He's been consistent. He's been getting 100 catches every year, getting 1,000 yards almost every year. He's been doing his thing. And again, Phillip Rivers, no offense to him, great quarterback. Potentially going into Hall of Fame, might go into Hall of Fame. He's going to have some good stats, obviously, no ring and all that stuff. Though, I mean, hey, who knows who gets it with the Colts. But, again, Tyreek Hill has easily the best quarterback and has had the best quarterback over the last couple of years. And Patrick Mahomes, and even like Alex Smith wasn't terrible his last year there. So, I mean, and also, you could say that, like, alright, so, like, Keenan Allen's had Mike Williams the last couple of years, had Tyrell Williams before that, Hunter Henry's been in and out of the lineup with injuries and stuff. But, when you have another guy in the middle, that you're afraid to, like, leave the middle of the field open to cover the side with Tyreek Hill, with Travis Kelsey, who can line up, like I say, can line up in the middle, line up on the outside, can line up literally all over. That definitely does help. Then, like I said, it's not Keenan Allen has nobody out there, but I said a guy that can kind of take up that middle of the field and be like, all right, we can't just focus all of our attention on Tyreek Hill because that will allow Travis Kelsey to kill us. Like I said, Keenan Allen doesn't really face that thing, though he lines up in the slide. They move him around too, so you can't always get the double teams, get the coverage rotated towards him, stuff like that. But like I'm saying, I wouldn't agree with him saying he's the best receiver in the AFC West, but he's angry. I understand his anger. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I completely get it. Like I said, the list was terrible. It's faulty, and he definitely is higher up than 77 in the league. Like I say, he's a borderline top 10 receiver, so that should at least get you near in the 50s or the 60s at the very least. But like I said, the list is terrible. So I'm not shocked that he was a little bit lower than he should have been. So like I said, understand his anger. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily, but I understand his anger. And like I said, to be great in the league, you have to believe you're the best. And he believes he's the best. And hopefully, if we have a season, he can go out and continue to show why he's the best receiver, not just in the AFC West, but one of the best receivers in the entire league. So, we've touched on it, we've hinted at it, but now we're going to get into this NFL 100 list. Absolutely horrific. And again, if you know me, you know I complain a lot about lists. But this might be one of the worst ones I've seen this year. And just another check mark in my favor in the opinion that just because you play the sport, that doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. Because that's what everyone says. All players like, oh, you didn't play, you don't know. While that may be true, a lot of players don't know what they're talking about either. So, we'll get into all of that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Podcast Network. So, the NFL 100, the list done by NFL Network, voted on by the NFL players for the top 100 players in the league. I guess it's supposed to be, it's very confusing. I think it's supposed to be based on this last season, but again, when you see the way people are ranked, it's clearly not based on this past season. It's a lot of just like name value that is thrown into it, and supposedly, again, can neither confirm nor deny this, but supposedly I heard or I read that the process is that basically they just like they have you rank your top 10 or your top 20. They compile everybody's list like that. Then like they do like a point system, and that's how the list is done. So again, it's not really like a thorough breakdown type of thing. It's just more so like, all right, who were 10 guys or 20 guys that I think are having a good year, and then just go from there. So the issue with that, in my opinion, is that obviously, if they do it during the season, so obviously NFL players can't watch all the games. Like they watch film of the guys they're playing against, but if you're not playing a team, I mean, you only play what? Okay, you play 3 division games, so that's 6 games. So you play 10 non-division teams when there's 32 teams in the whole NFL. So you're not watching. Again, I'm not going to say for certain you're not, but in general, you're not watching film of every team. So you don't know how good or bad every person in the league is playing. That's completely fair. And again, that's not how it should be based, but that makes it hard for you to say with certainty, like, oh yeah, this guy's definitely better than that guy. And that guy's, it's like, how much have you really studied both guys? Like, you might just be like, all right, I see on the talk shows or I hear or I've heard about, like, oh, this guy's having a really good season or that guy's having a really good season. Like, I don't really know. You might look up the stats or whatever, be like, all right, this guy's stats seem all right, so we'll just put him down, kind of thing. I think that's how a lot of this list is compiled. When you go through the list and you see where people are ranked and how they're ranked, you're like, it's not possible people are basing this off of this season alone, and 2 are watching the film to determine who's better than whom. It's just not possible. And again, I don't expect the players to, but again, if you're going to make this list and try to, again, it's not necessarily a fact, but I think they do. I think it's on Pro Football Reference. They do kind of keep track of where people are ranked on these lists. If you can look it up and see, like, oh, this person was ranked here this year, here that year. So I don't think it's going to help with Hall of Fame and stuff like that. But and then they keep track of it, so it's worth at least keeping track of. It's like seeing, all right, where was this guy ranked? Where was that guy ranked? How many times was he top 10? How many times was he top 5? Things like that. Like, I feel like that's how many times was he number 1. It seems like if they're going to do a list, you might as well keep track of it. But again, the list is a little faulty, in my opinion, so that kind of hurts things. So, I mean, like I said, we'll start from again, there were some, I'm not going to say he was the only one that was blatantly and obviously omitted, but one pretty big one, in my opinion, was Carson Wentz was not in the top 100. Now, again, you could argue where he should have been, stuff like that, in terms of the ranking in the quarterbacks. But again, when you see guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady on the list, then you could argue he had better seasons than them, and they were ranked kind of high. It's like, all right, brothers clearly didn't watch it, just know, all right, yeah, Tom Brady's normally good, Aaron Rodgers is normally good. They put it that way. But again, so he's not on the list. Foolish, but whatever. Not on the list. I think he's tied for 5th in touchdown passes this year. If I remember, like, league-wide. I think they said, because he had 27, and I know Jimmy G had 27, and they were trying to use that for him in that, like, oh, see, he was tied for such and such. And again, I mean, Jimmy G played well, but I think he was, like, in the 40s or something. And his numbers aren't all that different than Carson Wentz's, which is, again, why it's kind of crazy when you look at that. So in terms of touchdowns, he was tied for 5th with Jimmy G and Drew Brees. Jimmy Garoppolo had less yards than Carson Wentz, had more interceptions, had more yards per attempt, obviously, because again, Carson Wentz was dealing with the worst receiving core in the league, in my opinion. Teach his own. Had less yards per game, had a higher passer rating, which again makes some sense because he did have a higher completion percentage as well. So that works, but again, the stats, if you look at them, are fairly similar. One's ranked in the top 50, top 40, somewhere around there, and the other one, again, is not even remotely close to the two. Again, I don't know how far off he was, but he's not, like I said, he's not in the top 100. But you have guys like Josh Allen coming at, I believe it was 87, and his stats were comparable to Sam Darnold and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Well, not Sam Darnold, but Ryan Fitzpatrick. In terms of Ryan Fitzpatrick had more yards, had a higher completion percentage, had just as many touchdowns, had more interceptions. So there's that. Had about the same yards per attempt. No, had more yards per attempt. Had more yards per game, and they had the exact. And Fitzpatrick had a 0.2 higher passer rating. And again, Josh Allen's at an 87, just because they knew the Bills were doing well. And again, I don't know when these things are compiled. They might have been compiled right after the Dolphins game where the Eagles lost, and then everyone's like, "Oh, this season's over." Which again, if that was the case, understandable. But if you watch through the whole season and watch the end of the season, you see how well he played down the stretch, helping bring his team to the playoffs, having gone for 4,000 yards with no 500-yard receiver, first quarterback ever to do that, I believe. Again, he had over 500-yard tight end, so it's not getting nobody. I think Miles Sanders had like 500 yards. So again, he had other people, but when you're counting on 2 tight ends and you're running back to be your best receivers, that's not the most prolific passing game. But again, they still were able to do a good enough job to get it done, and a lot of the guys were guys that may have been with the team, like Greg Ward, but again, hadn't really got much playing time. More guys like Robert Davis, Deontay Burton. I'm trying to think who else they had to add late. I know J.J. Arcega-Whiteside played a little bit later. Josh Perkins, guys they had to add off the practice squad or off the street to fill in and play during those last few games and in the postseason because they were ravaged with injury. So, again, and also Kyler Murray made it too, which, I mean, Kyler Murray was good for a rookie, but he wasn't like that exceptional. He finished the season with 64% completion percentage, little like 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He had 6.9 yards per attempt, I believe, so about around where Wentz was. Well, Wentz at 6.7, so a little bit higher. Less yards per game, lower passer rating. Well, the team was worse. Everything. But again, Kyler Murray makes it in. Like I'm saying, it's all kind of messed up. And again, so now you're talking about guys that are not even on the list. Spend a lot of time on that. But guys that were on the list, we're talking about Brandon Brooks. And it's not just Eagles players. I mean, sound like I'm only ragging on the Eagles players who were all probably a little bit lower than it should have been. But Brandon Brooks, who was a Pro Bowler again this year, should have been an All-Pro. But I mean, hey, teach his own. He was an All-Pro with Pro Football Focus, but again, that's not the AP. So there is that. The Pro Football Focus has him as one of, if not the best guard in the league, and he came in at, I believe it was like 98, something like that. So again, how one of the best guards in the league comes in at 98 is beyond me, especially when he tore his Achilles late in the season. Tore his Achilles in the playoff game. the year before against the Saints. He came back and had an outstanding year. And then a little bit above him was Jason Kelsey at 94. And Jason Kelsey was, I believe, a first-team All-Pro. So again, it's like, how do you have a guy who was, he's been a Pro Bowl, he's been an All-Pro before. I just want to make sure he was first team this year. Yes, he was first-team All-Pro this year. He was a first-team All-Pro the year before, and first-team All-Pro the year before that. So he's been 3 straight years. So it's not like this is a new guy just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, he's been one of, if not the best in the league for the last 3 years running. And somehow he's at 93. When again, I mean, All-Pro, I mean, again, you can weight positions differently, but All-Pro, in theory, are the best players in the league at their position. There's different positions and everything, but I'm like, if you compile the first and second All-Pro team, those should be like your top 50-ish players, more or less, this season, because that's why they're on the All-Pro teams. How do you have a guy that's a first-team All-Pro would be ranked in the 90s just because, again, he's just not a guy people think about, or they're the way they rank them, which is based on, like I said, some sort of faulty point system. And even like I said, he went down this year. He was 72 in 2019, went down to 95 or 93, I believe it was, in this year's ranking. So I'm like, how does he make an All-Pro team and get worse? And again, he's not the only guy who had a bad ranking. Like I said, guys, that was some other guy. Well, we'll talk about the guys that were too high, not necessarily too low. Even though Mark Andrews, another guy, did make the list, and he was one of the best tight ends in the league this past season. But so the list, they had, who did they have? They had, well, first of all, they had Ryan Tannehill at 68. Again, he got a lot of buzz because he was good late in the season, but I don't know about that one. They had him, again, you have him ahead of guys like Jason Kelsey, Ronnie Stanley, who else? Amon Humphrey, one of the best corners in the league. Again, Jason Kelsey, as I mentioned, Brandon Brooks. So I'm like, I don't know if he's better than them this past year. Also, DeMario Davis, another guy, was an All-Pro caliber player. And like I said, even with that, there was another guy I wanted to talk about on here, but I can't find him. So I'll talk about some of the bad ones. So one of the worst ones I saw, at least, was Todd Gurley was 51. So borderline Todd Gurley was a top 50 player this past season. In what universe? He might not, like, if you ranked running backs, he might not even be, like, top 10, top 15 this past year. And how is he a top 50 overall player, unless there's, like, 14 running backs that were ahead of him, which I don't think there was. I'm trying to see. There was Mark Ingram, there was Nick Chubb, there was Zeke, there was, I know Saquon's in here somewhere, Aaron Jones in here. Okay, so let me do this again. You got Dalvin Cook, Zeke, Saquon, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, so that's 5. Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. That's 7 people ahead of Todd Gurley. And I guess they have what? I don't even know how many. Outside of those, who's even left? Like Christian McCaffrey. And then who else? Maybe I'm thinking. Am I forgetting somebody? Oh, Derrick Henry. So they said that means, if you're doing the math, I think that means they have him around the 10th best running back this year. The players did. Not possible. I can promise you. Josh Jacobs was better than him last year. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that you would put ahead of Todd Gurley. And yet again, he's top 50 off of name value. And that isn't even, I mean, that one's bad. But J.J. Watt, I think Clowney was 41 off of 3 sacks. Not all about sacks, but he missed some time. Was a little bit banged up. Trey White was 47, and he was, again, the second best corner in the league. Stephon Gilmore was going to be top 10, and Trey White's 47. Jalen Ramsey's going to be, I think Jalen Ramsey's going to be above him. Or where was he ranked? I'm trying to find him. Jalen Ramsey at 37. Jalen Ramsey wasn't better than Trey White last year. There's no way. There's just no way. Where is J.J. Watt? I gotta find him. Because he's on here, and his ranking... His ranking was the first reason why I wanted to talk about this, because it was atrocious. He might be the last one I talk about. I kind of want to talk about this forever. J.J. Watt's 45. Ahead of Dak, ahead of Trey White, ahead of Amari, ahead of Todd Gurley. And Todd Gurley was ahead of Chris Jones. Crazy. Ahead of DeForest Buckner or Devontae Adams. Again, now, I just want to remind everyone, in case you weren't aware, because, maybe you didn't watch that many Texans games this past year. J.J. Watt played a whopping 8 games. 8 games, had 4 sacks. How's he even eligible for the list? He missed half the season. How are you a top 45 player and missed half the season? That doesn't even make any sense. But again, that's what I'm saying, that this list is just weird. Like, what is it supposed to be based on? It's supposed to be based on this past year. It's supposed to be based on legacy. Because clearly guys are just getting legacy votes. Tom Brady was what? Number 14? The 14th best. He might have, if you rank the top 20 quarterbacks, Tom Brady might be below 14 in the quarterback ranking this past year. How's he the 14th best player? How does that make any sense? Tom Brady, again, is a GOAT. Going to go down as the GOAT quarterback, in my opinion. It's hard to say who the GOAT football player is, but he's the GOAT quarterback. 6 rings, done a lot of great stuff. And what universe could you say he was better than Chandler Jones? And what universe could you say he was better than Travis Kelsey or Nick Bosa? Even Aaron Rodgers, who's 16 is probably a little high. How was he better than Deshaun Watson? How is he better than TJ Watt? How is he better than Trey White? Like I said, the list could go on and on. Like it's like, And again, this is a list compiled by the players, the people that supposedly know what they're talking about. And yet here we are still showing you that maybe they don't. Because again, it's not, these analysts and stuff, they get paid, like they have free time, they have downtime and stuff. They can watch all the film. They can watch every team. They can read through Twitter threads and go through stuff on every team. Players don't have the time to do that. They got to, every week you're focused on a new opponent. You can watch film on that team, and if you play them, and even again, you play them, they might have played bad in your game. You might be like, all right, this guy's not that good. He might have been good the rest of the season, but he didn't play well against you. And then that's gonna affect your ranking, because you just remember when you played him, and oh yeah, this guy was sorry. I'm not putting him in my top 10, top 20. But then you're just gonna assume like, oh yeah, Tom Brady, he's probably good this year. I mean, Drew Brees was good, but I mean, he missed some time. Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. He's better than Tom Brady. But I'm like, in what universe was Tom Brady a top 15 player in the NFL this past year? There's no person that you could ask, a fan, analyst, whoever, that would tell you the Tom Brady that played this past year was a top 15 player. No one would say that. And here we are. We have the list compiled of all players that supposedly know what they're talking about, and he's top 15. Like, how do you not throw the whole list away? And again, the list that has Todd Gurley at 51 has J.J. Watt in the top 50, off of 8 games and 4 sacks. Again, sacks on everything, but he only played 8 games. How does that work? Carson Wentz couldn't win the MVP because he only played in 13, but J.J. Watt can be a top 50 player because he played in 8. We got Josh Allen on the top 100. Got Kyler Murray, got that other guys, and you're just like, how? Like what? Like what? Like, how does this happen? How does this? He wasn't even better than Kirk Cousins last year, Tom Brady. Kirk Cousins was 58. He wasn't better than Jason Kelsey. He wasn't better than Brandon Brooks. He wasn't better than Zach Ertz. Oh, at least in my opinion. Earl Thomas was 75, and he wasn't even like that good last year. The Ravens defense was good, but it wasn't because of him. It was because of Marcus Peters, in my personal opinion. Once they got him, the defense completely changed. I mean, it was still solid, but like he took it to a whole nother level. It was good because of Marlon Humphrey. Like, how, in what universe did you watch the Ravens defense and were like, you know who's better out of Marlon Humphrey and Earl Thomas? Earl Thomas. No one would say that. No one would say that. It means, in my opinion, no one should say that. Let me say that, because they clearly did. No one should say that. I don't want to go on too long because I've been rambling about this, but this list just blew mine. So I had to let some steam off my chest, because, like I said, the Todd Gurley one. Well, Carson Wentz not making it was when I was like, all right, this list is a sham. Brandon Brooks coming at 98 was already like, all right, well, we're in for some foolishness. Josh Allen and, like I said, Kyler Murray making it over him was foolish. But then, like I said, once I saw the Todd Gurley ranking, I was like, oh, okay, then we can just throw this whole thing away. Like, we should not even just rip this list up. Don't even count it. Like, don't even pay attention to this list. Like, why should we? If Tiger is a top 50 player this past season, that's because that's what it should be based on. It's not based on how good he was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever. It's this year. There's no way he's a top 50 player. I'm sorry. JJ Watt, no way he's a top 50 player. They're just not. No. Just like, come on. So, like I said, I've been talking about this for too long. It blew mine. I had to get some steam off my chest. We're going to transition to a little bit happier news. And, I mean, you're happy if you're a member of the Bosa family. Because Joey got himself pizzade. So, we're going to talk about that. Talk about him securing the bag. And also just looking back at his draft class, who apparently they've done a quite good job. That top part of that draft had done quite a good job of making sure they got all of that money. So we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
GSMC Podcast Network. So Joey Bosa, as per Adam Schefter, signed a 5-year, $135 million extension with the Chargers, including $102 million guaranteed, which is now a new defensive record. It was it was going to be broken. I think it's official. I don't know if it's officially official, but it was going to be broken by Myles Garrett. Apparently Joey Bosa and his agent saw that number and were like, hey, y'all can up the number a little bit. No, just a little bit. We're not asking for a lot, just a little bit. Worth of 50 cents. And then Chargers went for it. And so, hey, look, if you're going to do it, might as well do it. According to PFF, which, I mean, you can agree with that if you want, but PFF has him rated as the highest graded pass rushing edge defender in the NFL since 2017, 91.4 rating. He had the highest pass rush win rate, last year. Shout out to his agent for securing the bag. He got that big money deal signed, and also signed Joe Burrow signed his deal, 36.1, Got it all confused. $36.1 million deal. So his agents, he's popping all sorts. He's popping the expensive champagne. I don't know what the expensive champagne is because I don't got it like that. Ace of Spades. I know Jay-Z owns that. I think. I don't think it sounds like it should be expensive. I don't know what the expensive champagne is. But whatever it is, Joey Bosa's agent can now afford it because he's just getting everybody money. So shout out to him. But yeah, also shout out to Joey Bosa. It was, I don't know, I want to say a long time coming, but it was something that made total sense. He's been great for them since he got there. He's had and I guess outside of last year where he only played in 7 games, he's had double-digit sacks every year, 10.5 as a rookie, 12.5 in the second year, 11.5 in this past season. Had 18 tackles for loss this past season, 31 quarterback hits. Like I said, already talked about, one of the best edge defenders, or rush defenders, edge rushers. That's the words I was looking for. Edge rushers in the league, just in general, and again, obviously, per PFF, he's one of the best since 2017. And one of the best, like I said, even this year. So, him getting signed makes total sense. It makes the Chargers... I don't think he was ever going to go anywhere. But it, like I said, it confirms the Chargers' core for the next few years. Obviously, they drafted Justin Herbert. They have Keenan Allen. They have Mike Williams. They have Hunter Henry back. I think he's on the franchise tag, but he's back. Hopefully he can stay healthy. What We also got Derwin James. We got Casey Hayward still. We got Desmond King. Drafted Nasir Adderley. Drafted Kenneth Murray, I'm pretty sure, in the first round. A linebacker from Oklahoma. I'm pretty sure that's who they drafted. And obviously I know they drafted Herbert, but I'm pretty sure they drafted him. So yeah, they got a lot of their core set for the future, and that's honestly kind of all you can hope for at this point, is just make sure you have the guys that you think will be good for you for years and years down the line, because that's what's going to be most important, is just making sure you have all your guys locked up, because if you don't, then, like I said, if you don't, then who knows what was going to happen this next offseason. So I find it interesting that Joey Bosa is yet another guy, and the Chargers are yet another team that were just willing to be like, hey, look, pandemic, who cares? We're gonna give you that money. We want you here long term. We like you. You played well for us. Boom, boom, boom. You still had a year left on your deal, but you like I said, you've done good. I think what has been like a 3-time. I'd imagine like a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time, one Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm just seeing if has he made any All-Pro teams? Made second team, not for AP, but from Pro Football Focus and Pro Football Weekly this past year. Was first team Sporting News. So again, one of the elite pass rushers, one of the best pass rushers in the league, is ranked 34 in the NFL 100, I believe. If you, like I said, I don't care about that anymore. That list is fraudulent. But if you do care about that kind of thing, he was, again, the top 35, top 40 player. About right. But yeah, it's just interesting that teams and more teams are just being like, I'm going to treat this like any other year. Again, normally in the offseason, you see guys get big money extensions. That's just how it goes. And this year, everyone's worried like, are they going to, pandemic's everyone going to want to pay, or the guys going to want to sign? Like, well, the guys should want to sign, because again, you don't know what the money's going to look like on the back end because of the potential loss in revenue and that lowering the cap. And like I said, you don't know how that's going to affect future contracts, which is why the Dak and Cowboy situation it would have been bad in general. The fact that your quarterback's playing on the franchise tag. The quarterback's supposed to be that you claimed as your franchise quarterback, that you said you wanted around, that says he wants to be around. The fact he's playing on the franchise tag is already bad. But now, with this whole pandemic situation, it could be even worse. And that's assuming, like, the best case scenario, they finish out the season, or the salary cap's not that much lower. You hopefully get a new deal done with him. He plays well. Maybe franchise tag him again for a little bit more money. Everyone's relatively happy. You have your quarterback, he gets paid, or that's good. But if the salary cap goes up, and his salary goes down, he's still just as good as he was this past year. Now, why is it incumbent upon him to take a pay cut? I tried to get this done last year, and you didn't. I don't know if that was him or that was his agent. You will never know. Or that was the Cowboys side of things. You don't really ever know with these discussions who, quote unquote, was at fault for them. But again, the fact they didn't get it done is terrible on both sides, because again, now the future of the NFL, like in terms of salary cap, is up in the air right now. You don't know what it's going to look like next year. It could be about the same, could be potentially more, could be a little less, could be a lot less. We don't know. And I said that's going to cause teams to have to cut guys, like try to save money here and there, and he's going to be a free agent. Again, if they don't franchise tag him again. Which they probably would. Depending on how he plays this year, assuming he plays well, they can franchise tag him again at the very least, and then hopefully they can work out an extension. But, like I said, with that being said, I started to just assume everything's going to be fine with that, because the money might not be there. It's not unreasonable to expect the money might be a little hard to come by next year, like I said, with the lowering of the cap. But back to Joey Bosa. Like I said, shout out to him. Makes sense. Like I said, I like seeing guys get paid what they deserve. Like again, it's a shame what Yannick Ngakoue is dealing with down in Jacksonville, where he wants to get paid, or if he's not going to get paid, he wants to get traded, and then they won't trade him. They won't do either. They're just like, hey, look, you're on a contract. Either show up or don't show up. It's on you. We saw obviously Jamal Adams just got traded, but the fact that, and they got as we talked about, the return on him for him. Getting 2 first-round picks for any player is almost always a given, depending on if it's like Patrick Mahomes or one of those elite quarterbacks. Like certain teams aren't giving up 2 first-round picks for like certain players. But I don't know if a safety is one of those players I wouldn't give up 2 first-round picks for, especially one that wants big money and you're not willing to pay him just yet. I don't know what more he needed to do for you to be willing to pay him, but it was clear you didn't want to pay him. So it was like, all right, well, if we can get 2 first-round picks, you might as well use it. But yeah, so like I said, it makes sense for both sides. And as I was talking about, so not only is it just big for the his recent draft class on Joey Bosa, it was also big for the recent Ohio State grads. Albert Breer tweeted this out. One of the greatest collections of talent in college football history continues to get money in the pros, or get paid in the pros. Obviously, we talked about Joey Bosa, 5-year, $135 million extension. Michael Thomas, 5 years, $96.25 million extension. And Zeke got the 6-year, $90 million extension. And so, again, Ohio State Buckeyes, especially for the national championship team, cashing out. But again, it makes total sense. 2 of these guys went in the top 4. Michael Thomas went in the second round, if I remember correctly. But he's been one of the best receivers in the league for the past couple of years. So, clearly he was going to get paid. I mean, like I said, certain teams, if they like you, they just pay you. Which is, again, why the whole Dak situation is so wild. Shame. Feel bad for Jadeveon Clowney because he's been trying to get that money and no one's willing to cough it up for him. Though, again, sacks aren't everything in a defensive player, but he's never had double-digit sacks, if I remember correctly. So that definitely hurts his case. He's an elite run defender, which I don't know if Joey Bosa is an elite run defender, but he's an elite pass rusher. So, again, if you're going to be elite at one thing, in terms of getting money, probably wouldn't be elite at the sacks. Because again, run defense is important. I'm not going to shun the guys and say like you don't need to be a good run defender to be an effective 3-down player in the league. But the sacks are noticeable. Sacks are easier to count and easier to quantify and easier to make big bucks on because you can just say, look, I have this many sacks over this period of time. Not that many. No one else has this many sacks, or no one else has the closest many sacks. And then it's like, all right. Then when they get to you, you're just like, all right, okay, and we'll give you the money. So I just shout out to Joey Bosa in that regard, and also shout out to the 2016 draft class, if I remember correctly. So yes, the 2016 draft so far, extensions given out to these players. The number one pick, obviously, Jared Goff was 4-year, $134 million. Carson Wentz, number 2, was 4 years, $128 million. Just talked about Joey Bosa. Just talked about Zeke. DeForest Buckner got a 5-year, $105 million extension from the Colts. Yeah, from the Colts, because I know he got traded there. I'm assuming he got the extension after that. It would have been weird for the 49ers to pay him and then trade him. Wouldn't make any sense. And Jalen Ramsey and Ronnie Stanley are still waiting. And, Jalen Ramsey's going to have to get paid by somebody, because I don't know if it's going to be the Rams, because, again, they're trying to cut someone. They have to cut Todd Gurley. That's another crazy thing. Todd Gurley got cut this offseason, and he was a top 50 player. I'm trying not to rehash on that too much. Though, again, Minka Fitzpatrick was rated below Tom Brady. Disgusting. But yeah, so Jalen Ramsey still waiting on his big deal. Ronnie Stanley still waiting on his deal. Both of them should get paid. Also, I know Deshaun Watson out from same draft class, but he's waiting on his deal. He's going to get paid as well. Not Mahomes' money. He's going to get paid. But I wonder. I don't know how I would track this or who would know where I would be able to find this kind of information. But I wonder, what's the most amount of money a top 5 has gotten, from the first extension. Obviously, I'm not talking about over the course of their careers, because again, their careers aren't over yet. But for potentially the top 7 players in a draft to all hit to varying degrees and to all be worth a second big contract, and it has to be somewhat rare, I feel like. I'm not going to say it's completely rare, but it has to be at least a little rare, right? I'm saying the only one I could probably think of that's close is I think it was the 2011 draft, the Cam Newton draft. NFL draft, I think that was the one. I believe that was it. That was the one that had, Cam went 1. But again, obviously you're getting more money. The more recent the contract was. So that's a little bit unfair to these other guys that went a little later. But you had Cam Newton 1, Von Miller 2, Marcel Darius 3, AJ Green 4, Patrick Peterson 5, Julio Jones 6, Alden Smith 7, Jake Locker 8, Tyron Smith 9, Blaine Gabbert 10, J.J. Watt 11. So you have, you're talking about, Cam's a borderline, but he probably won't. He's probably a little dicey. But Von Miller's Hall of Famer. Patrick Beers is a Hall of Famer. Julio Jones Hall of Famer. Tyron Smith's Hall of Famer. J.J. Watt's Hall of Famer. In my personal opinion. Not saying first ballot, second ballot, wherever, but they're going to get in. In my personal opinion. So that's, like I said, there's 5 Hall of Famers in the top 11 of that draft. All of them got big money. So I'm wondering, like I said, I'm just curious, what's like the most money, like a top 5, a top 10 in the draft has ever gotten? Because, I mean, like I said, the 2016 draft class, I hope I said 2016 this whole time. I meant 2016, is cashing out. And you still got Jack Conklin. Well, after DeForest Buckner, Jack Conklin's good, but I know he got an extension. Not an extension, but he signed a new deal with the Browns, I want to say. He signed a 3-year, $42 million deal, so nothing too special. And then, obviously, Leonard Floyd and Eli Apple and Vernon Hargreaves are bringing down the property value. But then also, at 13, Laramie Tunsil signed a big deal. So, maybe factor that in, maybe don't. Again, you don't want to go through too far in the draft. But, again, just a top 7, all guys that have been to Pro Bowls, guys that have been all pros, some of the best players at their position, arguably, all cashing out. Shout out to them. That's really dope for that draft class to all have, like they said, those guys all be at the top of, arguably, for a lot of the guys, maybe not with Goff and Wentz, but when you got Bosa and Zeke and Jalen Ramsey, Ronnie Staley, DeForest Buckner, you got the guys that are at or near the top of their specific position. So that's pretty cool, and they're all getting paid. So far, we know Ramsey and Staley. So shout out to them for that. And as we talked about in the last segment, we talked about players not really knowing how to rate or how to rank people. The media doesn't really know as well. I mean, we've got to find some sort of balance here, guys. Like, I'm not saying like one person, like, again, because you look over here, the media has a terrible list that the players hate. You look over here, the players have a terrible list that the fans and the media hate. Look over here, the fans have a terrible list that the media and the players hate. It's like everybody hates everybody's list, which is fair. I hate a lot of people's list, but I know Zach Lowe was putting out his all NBA type teams, all defensive teams, stuff like that. And he had some noticeable omissions, in my opinion. And like I said, like I talked about in the last segment with the NFL 100, it's like hard, like what's the criteria? I feel like that same logic could be applied to the way we do like all pros and, maybe not all pros, but like all NBA teams. In terms of like, is it success or is it numbers? Because it seems like one's weighted higher than the other, in my opinion. I don't know if that's necessarily how it should be. So we'll talk about all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So obviously, with these last 8 games not really accounting for nothing more than like official season stats, they don't count for the MVP vote, they don't count for Rookie of the Year, all NBA teams, anything like that, all that stuff is done. So with that, people are already starting to put out their ballots, because again, they've probably already cast their vote, because there's no reason really to wait around to see what happens in these next 8 games, because they don't matter in that regard. So people are already starting to put them out. Obviously, Zach Lowe's not the only one that done it, but he was just the one that wrote a big article about it on ESPN. So I thought I would talk about it. And he, like I said, he has all NBA teams. He already covered his MVP, Rookie of the Year, and the other major awards. So looked at the all NBA teams, the all defensive teams, and the all rookie teams. Now, again, it's a very, very long and in-depth article. So, it's like I said, I don't have enough. It would take me like 30 minutes to go through all of this. So again, I would just recommend you reading it again. So at least a lot of people just put out their votes or their lists or their teams or whoever, and like you could ask them about their opinions. But Zach Lowe, at least to his credit, which is why I'm not going to bash him too much, is he gave a detailed reason for why. Now you might not agree with his reason, and that's completely fair. But he did give a very detailed reason for why he felt the way he felt about certain guys making the team or not making the team. And I think that's all you can really ask for when you come to these games. You want to at least understand why at the end of the day. Understand why. So, on his All-NBA team, first team, he had LeBron, Harden, which is interesting because, again, and that's so this isn't Zach Lowe's fault, but this is the NBA's fault because they like changed the way like people can be delegating. I mean, in fairness, LeBron played a lot of point guards, so I'm not like that mad about that. But as we'll see with the all defensive team, that's the other one I'm going to touch on. He was able to put Kawhi at guard when, again, he doesn't ever play guard. Like PG plays the 2, he plays the 3. So I was like, how can you warrant putting him at guard? He did the same thing with Tatum, who we'll get to in a moment. He put him at guard when he's a forward, like Jaylen Brown plays guard, Marcus Smart plays guard, Kemba Walker plays guard. Generally, I mean, I'm not saying Jason Tatum has never been the 2 at any point during the season, but that's just not his position. So you can't put somebody there. Like Ben Simmons being a guard makes sense because for most of the season he played the point. That's understandable. I understand the same thing for LeBron. But when you're talking about Kawhi and Tatum, like those guys aren't guards, they're forwards. I'm saying he lists like I said, Kawhi is listed as a forward on the first team All NBA, but then on the all defensive team as a guard. I say, how does that? Either you're a guard or you're a forward, and it's not, or unless you're you can be both, but I'm like, it's like just pick one. If you list them, I feel like you should. If you list somebody as a guard in one, you should have to list them as a guard in another, and vice versa. If you list somebody as a forward in All NBA, you have to list them as forward in all defensive team. Again, so just you give people an easy way out. Again, instead of having to make a tough decision on Giannis, Kawhi, and LeBron, which it should have just leave Kawhi off. Because it's funny, because he doesn't have, spoiler alert, he doesn't have Embiid on any of the 3 all-defensive teams. Any of the 3 all-NBA teams because he didn't play enough games and played like 44. But Kawhi played 51. And I mean, 50, again, is more than 51 is more than 44. But it's not like he played like he still missed 30. He has 8 more games. So if he plays every game, he'll play 59 games. And if Embiid plays every game, he'll play 53, even though those games don't count for this. So I'm saying, like, he played 7 more games. And like I said, Embiid can't be on the All-NBA team because he missed 40. He only played in 44 games. I said that logic doesn't make too much sense to me, personally. Apparently, his biggest reason was that Gobert played over 800 more minutes, which, fair, I get, but I'm just saying, Kawhi not being on, him not being out there a lot, and again, load management and injuries and different things, I'm not begrudging the guy, but again, I feel like you should have to play more, you should have to play 60 games to qualify for an All-NBA team, in my opinion. Play 60 games. Like, that seems like a nice, solid barometer. Again, you can't pick and choose when you want to apply it, because again, 7 games is not that many more. When again you have guys like LeBron and Giannis and Doncic all playing every game, more or less every game. James Harden playing almost every game. I mean, like the guys miss games here and there. I'm not saying you need to start in all 82 or whatever the number of games is, but if Kawhi can only play in 51 games and make All NBA, when I believe last year when he played in 60, I'm trying to see if he made All NBA first team. I mean, his maybe his stats weren't as good. Let me check. His field goal percentage was higher. His 3-point percentage was higher. His 2-point percentage was higher. His free throw percentage was worse. He had the same amount of rebounds, less assists, same amount of steals, and about the same amount of points. I'm trying to see if he made All NBA first team last year. And again, it's a year-to-year thing. You can't really compare it. But I'm trying to see. He made All NBA second team last year. which I feel like is completely fair because he only played in 60. He played in 60 games in load management and stuff like that. But now this year, he's playing 51 again. He's been great in those 51 games. He's played in 51 games. I would put a guy like Doncic in there. He's played in all the games. Has the Mavs offense humming. He's averaging 28.7, 9.3, and 8.7. 9.3 rebounds, 8.7 assists. Played in more games. He's shooting 46% from the field. 3-point percentage is very shaky. Did not realize that. But yeah, obviously he's not the defender Kawhi is, but this is an all-defense team. It's an all-NBA team. And again, so just put LeBron at forward, move. And I feel like if you can apply the same logic to LeBron, Ben Simmons, he's a guard. Doncic handles the ball a lot. You would easily put him at guard, or if you want to put Dame Lillard, you can do that as well. I wouldn't have done that because again, like I'm saying, so we'll talk about with his. We'll actually only be able to touch on the All NBA. I don't want to hold you guys on for too long, but Dame averaged 28.9, 4.3 rebounds, 7.8 assists. His team is currently below 500. Not his fault. A lot of guys were injured. But they are at 27 wins, 31 losses, I believe, on the season, coming into, again, this new season, if you will. So yeah, it's just we'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, that was my big issue with the All-NBA first teams, that he puts Kawhi on there, which again, that's completely whatever. If you want to do that, you want to do that. But he leaves Embiid off because he didn't play in enough games when Kawhi only played in 7 more. The logic seems kind of flawed. But again, based on who he had in the first team, the second team was Chris Paul, Dame, Luka, Jimmy Butler, Jokic. Based on who you have in the first team, there's not really much wiggle room there. On the second team, those guys all make sense. And then the third team, he has Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum at the 2 guard spots, Pascal Siakam, Chris Middleton, and Rudy Gobert. So this is, again, where things get interesting. Because Ben Simmons, no, I won't get much argument from me. Pascal Siakam won't get much argument from me in that one. Jason Tatum making it won't get much argument from me, other than the fact he made it a guard when he doesn't play guard. Again, just put him at his. You can't you can't make it easier for yourself. I want to put Jason Tatum and Chris Middleton on, but I want to put Pascal on too. So let me just move this guy to guard so I can knock off Devin Booker, or I can knock off Bradley Beal or Russell Westbrook, guys that actually play guard, just so I can fit the team. It's all right, come on. Now you're trying to be shady, in my opinion. I'm not trying to be shaky. Again, the league allowed it, so he can exploit the loopholes however he seems fit. But again, that's the NBA issue more than the Zach Lowe issue. So just all right, so you have that. So the interesting one is whether you go Tatum or Middleton. And again, I think this is where we have to decide what matters. Is it numbers or is it winning? And again, it's all kind of relative, because Jason Tatum this past season is averaging 23.6, 7.1 rebounds, 2.9 assists. I'm pretty sure he's leading the Celtics in points, if I remember correctly, if I can find their team stats. Not their injury report, their per game stats. He is leading the team in points by almost 5 over Kemba. No, almost 2, excuse me. He's only shooting 23.6. He's also shooting 39% from the 3-point line, 80% free throw line, like I said, 7.1 rebounds, 2.9 assists. Again, the assists aren't really his thing. When you have guys like Kemba, Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward, all guys that can handle the ball and assist in that way, you don't really need Tatum to do that. Advanced numbers, has a 110 offensive rating, 1.5 defensive rating. Those are his per 100 numbers. His advanced numbers, PRs, 20.3, if you care about that kind of stuff. His win share, 6.2. He's great on offense, alright on defense, first box score plus minus, 3 value over replacement player. And then you have Chris Middleton, who again is getting the benefit of being on the Bucks, but he's averaging less points, less rebounds, slightly more assists, with 4.1 assists. He's shooting better from 3. Give him that, though he's shooting, I believe, less threes. Yeah. Which, that's your prerogative. Yeah, Jason Tatum shooting 7.1, and he's shooting 5.8. Yeah, 5.8. Let's see, per 100, his offensive rating is 119, but again, the Bucks' offense is amazing. defensive rating 103. His advanced numbers, his PR is 21.4, so a little bit higher, but again, the team's a little bit better. His win shares are 7.4 to 6.2. His box score plus minus is a little bit higher because the defense is a little bit higher. And then the value over replacement player is a little bit lower than Jason Tatum. So again, if you care about that kind of stuff, teach his own. But yeah, and actually the funniest thing is I think as Zach Lowe went to right, Jason Tatum's one of the better defensive players in the defensive wings in the league. He said his defensive win share is actually higher than Chris Middleton, who's also a very solid defensive player, which is funny. So yeah, so I'm saying it's debatable, but I mean I would argue being a number one option on a playoff team is a little bit easier than a little bit better than being the number two option on a playoff team that's again very good. But a lot of that is because of Giannis. I'm not saying Chris Middleton couldn't do that, but if they didn't have Giannis, I don't think they're as good. I think that's very safe to say. And then it's like, all right, so he gets the win benefit. But I'm like, should that really be important? Because again, you leave guys off like Bradley Beal, who's, I believe, averaging 30 points. If I did my math right. Or if I look at it, he's averaging 34.5, 4.2 rebounds, 6.1 assists. Basically by himself, because I mean, if you look at the Wizards roster this year, I mean, everyone knew they were going to be bad. It is what it is with no John Wall. It is what it is. He's averaging 15 more points than the next closest guy in terms of points per game. Dallas Bertans the next closest guy, and then third is Rui Hachimura, the rookie. And Dallas Bertans is good. He's just like a 3-point guy, 42% from three, but he's only shooting 11 shots a game. Bradley Beal shooting 45% on about 23 field goals a game, shooting 35% from three, 51% on twos, shooting about 84% from the free throw line. Again, averaging 30 points. I don't know how you average 30 points and not make his PR is 23.1. Offensive win share is 4.6 higher than Tatum and Chris Middleton. Defensive win shares obviously aren't that high because the team is not that good. His offensive box score plus minus is 5.3 higher than both guys. His defensive one is bad because again the team is bad. So yeah, just like, what do we base it on here? Is it based on numbers? Is it based on winning? Because again, Harden, I believe, is first team. Yeah, Harden's first team, and his team is currently sixth in the West. So that didn't matter there. Dame Lillard is second team and arguably first team. So, but again, his team's not even in the playoffs right now. Like if the season went along, I mean, who knows, they would have made it, but they're gonna have to get into a playing game potentially to even get into the playoffs. And again, and now this is going to be different because now they got everybody back healthy, so it's a different team than it was when he was playing before, which benefits him greatly, obviously. So like they pick and choose when to apply the win thing, and obviously again that's why Chris Middleton got in, because there's guys that arguably could be more deserving. In Devin Booker, who's averaging what I think like 25. What's his numbers looking like? Again, on a Suns team that no one expected to be good, at least the Blazers had some sort of playoff aspirations, and his second best player is better than Bradley Beal or Devin Booker's second best player. Devin Booker's averaging 26.1, 4.2 rebounds, 6.6 assists for a Suns team that has been very shaky at best. Their best player, not named Devin Booker this year, has probably been Kelly Oubre, because DeAndre Ayton's only played in 25 games. He's supposed to be their second best guy, but he wasn't able to play a lot. I think he got suspended and maybe had some injuries and stuff. And when he's played, he's been great. He's averaging 19 and 12 this year. But again, most of the year his second best player was Kelly Oubre, which again is not CJ McCollum. And like I said, Bradley Beal's second best player was Davis Bertans, Rui Hachimura, whoever you want to call it. So again, even the Blazers didn't have Zach Collins, they didn't have Nurkic for most of the year. They said those two guys are good, mellow. Like they had other pieces around where you could argue they should have been better than they were. They weren't going to be an upper echelon team with those kind of injuries. But Dame gets credit for carrying those teams to losing records, while Bradley Beal and Devin Booker get crucified for having their teams near the level of Dame's, while putting up very similar, and in Bradley Beal's case, better numbers. Again, how do you average 30.5 points and don't make any of the All-NBA teams? Because you want to put Jason Tatum at guard. No. Just pick between him and Middleton. All right, you got to leave somebody off, that's fine. But again, just pick who you think is better. Don't try to I don't want to put Bradley Beal on because the Wizards are sorry. That's not his fault. That's not how these things should be viewed. I should feel like your wins should count for legacy stuff. All right, if you want to do who was the better all time, did this person win more? Were the teams better? Stuff like that. All right, cool. But in a specific season, the team being good or bad relies only so much on the best player, but so much. Again, you could have bad coach, you got an incompetent front office, you might have injuries, things like that. If the player's playing well, that shouldn't be just nullified because his team is bad. That, and again, players on good teams shouldn't just be elevated because their team is good. The team being good means they have a lot of good players outside of those one or two top guys. Again, Chris Middleton has a first-team All-NBA player on his team with him. Russell Westbrook also doesn't make it. He's averaging, I think, 30-something points since January 1st once they started going to small ball lineup. He's been amazing. He's not shooting threes, which, again, is probably going to hurt him, but he's been amazing on twos, amazing getting to the rim, playing plus defense. Again, you could have argued during the middle part of the season, it was his team, that he was helping keep them afloat. So it's again, it's they pick and choose when the winning matters. Because again, it didn't matter for James Harden because he's first team. But now, Bradley Beal and Devin Booker can't make third team because you got to put Chris Middleton in, you got to put Tatum in, which is, again, Tatum I'm fine with, but if you want to Tatum or Middleton, I'm fine with. You can't put, you're going to put both of them on just because you want to slide one into guard because you don't want to make a decision between, Lowry or Russ or, like I said, Booker or Beal. No, just pick one. That's your job. Again, I'm not going to rag on Zach Lowe too much. Again, he laid out very nicely, which again I would recommend you reading the article if you want more information on it. He laid out very detailed why he chose what he chose. And again, when you have those kind of things and you pick and choose when you want to apply certain things, like I said, you pick and choose when you want to apply the games limit because Kawhi played 7 more games than Embiid. That's good enough for him to get first team, but now Embiid can't make third team over Gobert because he didn't play in enough games. But like I said, Kawhi can make first team over Doncic, not in playing in less games because he's a better defensive player, which is fine. But again, then the Mavs and that offense and what Doncic has done in the second year in the league is amazing. So again, you pick and choose when you want to apply certain criteria. Like I said, they're doing it even, like I said, when they want to apply standards on winning. It's all right, this guy gets a boost for winning, and this guy, or in this guy's case, this winning doesn't matter. It's just they pick and choose when they want to apply. Because if that was the case, Klay Thompson made a lot more All-NBA teams than he did, because he was a good player on a winning team. And I think he's made, I'm trying to think, I just want to look up real quick how many All-NBA teams he's made. Again, I'm not saying Zach Lowe didn't vote for him. But he's a 5-time All-Star and only 2-time All-NBA. He made All-NBA in 3rd team in 2014-2015 and 3rd team in 2015-2016. And only made All-Defensive Team 1 time in 2018-2019. He was 2nd. And again, it's not like he's been sorry. It's not like his stats aren't good. He's been averaging 20 points a game since 2014-2015. And obviously, again, you have KD there. That hurts a little bit. But still, he's been averaging to over 20 points, been shooting over 40% from 3, playing great defense. And again, he doesn't get the boost. It actually hurts him being on a good team, but then Chris Middleton gets elevated because he's been playing too well and the team's too good for him to get left off. It's again, I wish there was more uniform criteria for how we choose these things. Everybody's kind of arbitrary and everyone kind of picks and chooses when they want to do things, when they want to apply things. That's like I said. It doesn't seem right because, and again, I don't think it's not the end of the world for Bradley Beal or Devin Booker, those type of guys. They don't make All-NBA team, but at the same time, when you're that affects guys in negotiations and Hall of Fame things, stuff like that. When you're looking at later on down the line, not leaving them off because you don't want to pick and choose between 2 players and you want to slide this person into a position he doesn't play. And it's just all right, come on, that's a little shaky to me. Or you want to pick and choose when you apply who's on a bad team, because again, it doesn't matter for Dame. He helped carry the team through injury. But Beal and Booker, who are on worse teams to begin the year, on paper, those teams were worse than that Blazers team was, get dinged because their team's bad. Like I said, it's just inconsistent application of the rules. But again, there's no rules, so it's going to be inconsistent, but as we're more uniform, we decide, like, does winning matter or does stats matter? Is it a combination of both? Is it neither? When do we choose? And if we're going to do it, apply it across the board. Don't pick and choose for certain guys. That's just my opinion on it. But, hey, to each their own. Like I said, if you want to read Zach Lowe's article, it's very good and very detailed, so you can do that on ESPN.com. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to make sure I thank you guys, as always, for listening to me ramble. I know that the last few segments have been very rantish, but you guys gotta I'm seeing, when I see lists that don't make sense, I gotta get it off my chest. It bothers me. As you can tell, I like to complain about things. So, I mean, this is a nice platform for me to get that kind of anger out, because, I mean, tweet threads hurt the thumbs. It's too much. My vocal cords are luckily able to withstand all the ranting and the, not anger, but just the discontent with some of the things I'm seeing. But, like you for today, like you for in past episodes, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, wherever you listen to your podcast, if you could please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Be very appreciated, very helpful. Again, let's see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And if you're on social media, we're on social media, you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. You can talk about why the NFL 100 list is terrible. We can talk about what the MLB should do about the Marlins or potential new outbreaks that may pop up throughout the season. Talk about NFL players opting out. How do you think they should handle it? Because, again, you've seen what's happening in the MLB. The NFL is doing the same thing, except worse, because they're traveling all over the country, having their teams travel all over the country, and they're not playing an abbreviated season. At least the MLB is doing that. They're going through the 16-game season as if nothing's wrong. So, is that the right move? Should they try something else? Should they try the bubbles, satellite, like host cities, different things? Like I said, all that stuff I'm more than happy to talk about with you guys. Before I get out of here, I'm going to give my episode shout out to the daily essential workers. So again, like EMTs, nurses, doctors, firefighters, grocery store workers, delivery drivers, people working with the postal service. I know postal service, they're like the things that are going on with them and the things they're having to deal with, and the amount of things that are being backed up. And it's unfortunate because it's not really their fault from what I've read, but it's just like they're losing money. They're trying to mess with them, trying not to allow them to work as well and in the way in which they should be able to work. And again, it's hurting them, and then it's also hurting the people in the back end that are waiting for stuff, because now things that normally could take a few days are taking up to 2 weeks. That's unfortunate, but shout out to those guys. I know you're dealing with a lot, but just keep up the hard work. I know it's not your fault that things are the way they are, but hopefully they can get them fixed. Other delivery drivers, again, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, shout out to you, because again, you guys are allowing people to stay home and not go to the stores and stay safe. And again, you're potentially putting yourself at risk, depending. But again, you're doing a service that, without you, don't know how I would have ordered a lot of stuff I've ordered during this quarantine period. Also, shout out to grocery store workers. I know you guys are dealing with a lot. Hopefully, it's a little bit better now, because people, I hope, are more accepting about wearing masks since the president talked about it. But again, he's very fickle. But yes, hopefully you don't have to deal with the same situation of people not wearing masks, people being defiant, people being aggressive, angry about being forced to wear a mask and different things. Again, just every other developed country that has handled the coronavirus better than us, they had people wear masks. Why is it only this country where we debate on whether they work or not, when everyone basically says they work, and that's the best way to stop it, is just have everyone wear a mask? And yet we wonder why there's a chance MLB and the NFL season might not even finish. So it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me, at least, but to each their own. And again, if you're going to be going out, doing things, tip your workers, your waiters, waitresses, hostesses, if you want to, delivery drivers, bartenders, barbers, hair salon people. I get hairdressers, I think is what it's called. Yeah, that's what it's called. Your nail techs, wherever you're going. If as long as you're being, like, again, hopefully you're being safe, but also, regardless of that, you're putting potentially yourself at danger, you're putting them at danger. So again, if you're going to do that, just tip them a little bit more. They'll be appreciated. Everyone's been dealing with stuff. Again, if you can. I'm not going to tell anybody to do something without their means, because I know they're talking about shutting down that unemployment, the extra $600 a week. I don't know how that, but then they just gave millions of dollars to Kodak to become a pharmaceutical company. Don't know how that math works out. Because, I mean, from what I knew, they sold cameras. But hey, I guess they'll become a drug company now. And they can just get bailouts. But then, again, there's a debate on if unemployed people should continue to get $600 in a pandemic. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But again, shout out to all you guys. But yeah, that'll do it for me here today. I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.